So I was saying that this topic is also pretty close to my heart. The journey that I have taken, starting from an engineer in a products company and slowly moved towards an architect role. And then I found out that there is some such role called product management, and this was about 15 years ago. I had absolutely no clue what that is, but it seems to be very important in the organization. There are a lot of people who have meetings with product managers and come back with certain decisions. And more importantly, what personally excited to me was the opportunity that this role, people in these roles, get to actually go and meet customers and talk to them and understand their problems and their pain points, and also help them understand the products much better in such a way that you help them solve certain workflows, certain pain points that they are going through, right? And not just that, not just stopping at that, bringing back those insights, bringing back those specific pain points that the customers have, and then sitting down with the various stakeholders, different functional teams, to come up with how do we solve this, right? And that's the beauty of this particular role. Now, clearly, I had a 10 years engineering background before that, before I started wanting to get into product management. So every time I tried this, there was always a hesitation in some people's part that, but you have not done product management before, right? And this was the same question that I had. Well, somebody has to give me an opportunity to get there, right? And then prove myself there, and then grow in that particular role. Now, and I'm talking about very senior leaders in the company that I was working with. Now, I'm sure just like many of you, I had also built certain credibility in the organization, right? So the hesitation was not about whether I will be able to do it or not. The hesitation was more about, this is kind of a strategic role, right? Now, strategic role means you're making some very important decision that has business impact, that has impact on the products, that has impact on your customers. So if you've not had the opportunity to play in that, should we take risk or not? Right? Now, of course, a lot of people helped me, and I learned through trial and error. I wish there were these webinars like this, and somebody coming and giving some tips and busting some myths to get into product management to make it easier. So I took the hard road, and hence my favorite topic. And I spend a lot of time coaching people, guiding people in how do you get from where you are into that desired role that you have, right? So in this session, what I'd like to talk about essentially is, these topics, right? So let's talk about, why are product careers so hot right now, right? It's not just in India. You can see this in many, many countries, product management especially, and at different levels, right? Right from entry level all the way up to CPOs, chief product officers. This is one of the most sought after roles today in the industry. And let's understand a little bit about the roles and responsibilities of a product manager. Often, this is where a lot of people get confused, right? Particularly because in India, there are different titles that are given to different people. Business analysts have become product owners, and product owners think that they are product managers, a lot of different things. So I'll try and provide some high-level construct on how to think about the role and responsibilities. And here is another important thing that everyone, whoever is either aspiring to or wanting to do into this, right? Now, what I was saying is, it's really important for each one of you to introspect a little bit and see, is this really a right role for you, right? Now, just because everybody says product management is hard, it is strategic, it is fun, it is exciting, it's challenging, and all of that, there are certain things that I want to bring to your notice as a practitioner for 15 years in variety of roles and levels, that you want to think about applying it to yourself and see whether this particular role is right or not. It's okay if it's not right. There are many other exciting things that you could do, with that particular mindset as well, right? And then spend a little time on how do hiring managers look at when they are hiring product managers. I've been a hiring manager for many years. I've hired dozens of them. And there is a certain perspective that we all have, and I know a lot of people who hire in the industry as well. So I'll bring that up, open it up for all of you to see How are hiring managers looking at it? And then how do you plan backwards and create some strategy and approach to tackle that, right? And then we'll get into some specific tips. I'm also a product coach, executive coach, and senior faculty at the Institute of Product Leadership. So during many interactions with various people over many years, there are some tips that I want to bring you. Of course, there's a whole lot of things, maybe one day I'll write a book, but given the time constraint that we have and the audience that we have, we could actually focus on those tips. Yeah. All right, so let's jump in. So product careers, as I said, and you all know, and I'm assuming that at least one of the reasons that you're all here, at this time after a long day, I don't know about you, but I had a very long day, is it's a very exciting and hot career opportunity right now, right? So if you look at some of the data and information all around, and by the way, what you're seeing is coming from an annual report that IPL does, talk to about 2,000 product managers in various types of organizations and bring certain interesting insights, right? Where were you before product management? How did you get in there? How long have you been? And how has your salary changed? And even from a hiring manager perspective. So if you want that full report, it should be available on the website, on the productleadership.com website. Please go ahead and download that and look at it. But clearly three things here, right? One, there is an absolute need for good product managers right now in this country. For a simple reason that there are a lot more companies now building products, and building products not just for Indian consumers or customers, but also globally, right? So lots of product companies in different stages, early stage startups, all the way to nicely funded ones, up to multinational companies. They're all building products for the world, right? So there is no surprise there, and it was anticipated. I, along with lots of industry leaders, anticipated this change to happen. It would take 6 years, but to our pleasant surprise, it just took 3 to 4 years, right? And also you can look at the product management jobs in various portals. You will see in India alone about 44,000 right now open. Now, what is also interesting is the compensation jump that this particular role provides is fascinating, right? It's probably one of the highest jumps that you will see, along with data science and data analysts. But it's still in India, product management is pretty high. I think a starting role with a title of associate product manager or technical product manager on an average salary is about 12.5 lakhs. And then it really grows, right? After senior product manager into group PM roles, it really is pretty high. So, there is no surprise there again, well-paying job, successful career path, or at least challenging career path in my view. And it is exciting. Now, another interesting thing that an insight that this report threw is a lot of companies are now putting together variable pays for product managers, right? Earlier, variable pay was mostly for sales, right? So you have X target and you meet that X target. Above that, you have incentives and commissions and whatnot. It is coming to product management as well. But interestingly, the metrics or the KPIs or the targets, if you will, are on product metrics, right? Whether it is acquisition related, whether it's engagement related, whether it's usage related, lots of metrics coming in from different products. And it's also interesting that many product managers are not liking that, right? And again, not a surprise, but I'm sure, as more and more companies start doing this, a lot of people will start looking at, more of that share versus more of a fixed one. But this is just a good insight and to help you understand that it's not just an exciting role in terms of the impact that you can have in the organization, but also obviously commensurate and well-paying job. Now, before we jump into a lot of other tips and everything, just a quick baseline on, if you will, on what is product management, right? If you ask 20 people, you will get almost 15 definitions around it. So that is the number one challenge. That's also an interesting part about this role. But in a way that I look at this, and many other folks from this industry look at this, is it's basically a combination of science and art bringing together to identify compelling market opportunities, right? Market opportunities that provide you huge opportunity. Opportunity in the sense here is an unmet need, right? Or an underserved market. These are all areas that you can identify and bring back, quantify that opportunity, and work with the teams to say, how do we solve this? First of all, is it worth solving? Is it worth for us to put that investment, time, and effort and everything into that? And is it worth solving? If the answer is yes, now how do we solve this better than the others, right? Which is a compelling solution, which basically differentiates itself in many different ways, with respect to the alternatives that the customers have. Always, most of the cases, not always, most of the cases, your customer has some choices, right? Now, these choices doesn't have to be some other products, some other competitors' products. It could be their own workarounds. It could be their own custom-made things. These are all alternatives we all go through, even in our life, to solve certain pain points of the problems that we get. Now, again, in many companies, if you look at it, profit is a very important component. Of course, now you see lots of products, lots of companies where profitability has taken a back seat, growth has taken a front seat. And that's a business model. That's a decision that the company makes. And at the same time, if you're not paying attention to profitability, you're seeing what you're seeing in the industry today, right? Many of you, I'm sure, are observing that several product companies are actually tightening up their spending, cost cutting, layoffs, and all of that, unfortunately, because I think the flush money that came in was used for fundamentally growth and marketing and customer acquisition. And there's nothing wrong in it. There is nothing immoral about it. It's just that at some point in time, you have to put that focus into profitability. So in well-run organizations, in well product-driven organization, if you will, profitability is always a consideration that comes into it, right? So that in a very simple way, the definition of product management. Now, there are several responsibilities, right? You can go on and on and on about PMs in different levels and different roles, but fundamentally, I summarize this into these three things. A lot of time when you work in product development or engineering or anything, the focus is always building the product right? Which is, let's make sure that what we needed to build, we are building it properly, we're building it with quality, we are building it on time, we're building it in budget, and making sure the customer gets what we told them that they will get, right? But there is a big process and there is a big activity that happens before that, which is building the right product, right? And now this is where lots of time, especially in India, a lot of product managers are spending. And I'll come about explaining what those activities are and what kind of competencies are needed. But fundamentally focusing on customers, understanding who they are, understanding their pain points and unmet needs, and bringing them back and deciding what to do with it, right? Now, assuming that you go through that and your team is building the product, or even sometimes before you build the product, you need to find the right champions to support you in this cause, because there are lots of key stakeholders here, right, who need to come together, invest their team's time and effort and money into making this product. And one of the situations that I was in, when I was in Oracle, is we had this product that was built for a certain group of people, certain customer segment, and for a certain set of use cases. But then, a few years down the line, I came across a very interesting opportunity, right? By chance, I was reading some article about how set-top boxes communicate with backend systems when you are using your remote, when you are trying to schedule a recording, when you are trying to set up an alert or reminder, all of that. And that kind of brought some ideas in my mind. And of course, I took those ideas to my product team, and they said, "Oh, that's a very interesting idea, but who's going to take it to market?" Right? So I had to spend a lot of time with sales, trying to help them, educate them, create awareness. Can you guys go and validate if there is a need here? Can you guys go and validate if this is a problem that we can solve? Now, often the response from sales is very tactical, right? Which means, look, we have a certain territory, we have a certain targets, and we have certain products to sell, and that's what we are going to focus on. But if you are telling us a new market, new application, new use case for these products, maybe we should set up a new team, right? Now, I went back to the sales leadership, and sales leadership asked for forecasting, financials, and all of that. which is fine, but they're still on paper, right? So, I had to find a couple of champions within the sales team and make friends with them and go to customers whenever they are going and help them understand the use case. And it took a long time, but eventually within 3 years, we were able to take the same product and put it into a different market or customer segment, all because that you're able to find the right champions in different functional teams and influence them, convince them, or at least, let them give you a choice or a chance to go and try that out, right? So that's really, really critical from a product management perspective. And the third one, of course, is, how does this impact the business? Are we working on a hobby? Are we working on a niche market? Or is the opportunity big enough? When you say big enough, how do we quantify that, right? In terms of dollars, in terms of, forecasting 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, some of these things, right? Now, obviously, all of these things are not absolutely required right away for every product manager, right? I think it's important to recognize that. Don't get intimidated by it. These will become important at different stages, right? And I'll talk about some of those stages to help you visualize or understand what those stages might be. But those are the key responsibilities. So here is how a typical career path for a product manager looks like, right? And of course, designations are fancy in India and also very creative and interesting. But if I were to take a sampling from many, many product companies, this is how I would put it, right? So most of the time, 0 to 2 years of the folks who are in engineering or development or anything who want to get into product management, often, and this is a interesting thing that Indian companies are doing, right? They've created a title specifically called technical product manager or an associate product manager, APM or a TPM, right? So that you provide a path to the young professionals who have about 0 to 3 years experience and move into that. And then you have product owners, right? So here again, a large portion of the activity was earlier done by business analysts, but now business analysts were mainly an interface or a conduit between the customer translating their business requirements into something the engineering teams or the development teams can work on. That continues to be the case even in product owners, but product owners spend a lot more time on defining the details, right? So what we call as a product owner is an orchestrator, a master orchestrator of the product planning process, right? So, and then you have the product manager, senior PM, but while that is a growth path, if you look at from a responsibility point of view, right? So you have product module owners, which is typically POs and APMs and TPMs there. You have a product, you have lots of modules in there. Some of them get responsibility of that particular module, whether it is reporting, whether it is payments, whether it is authentication and login and single sign-on, right? There are all these more parts of the product that you look at. And sometimes, the product owners and product managers are feature owners, right? So across the modules, the PM also looks at across the modules and say, in a given product and look at features as a responsibility. Now, features obviously is nothing but, ways you're trying to solve the unmet need of a customer better, faster, and cheaper than what exists out there, right? So how do we solve this better? Now, that can come from technology, that can come from design, that can come from simplifying the workflows, that can come from customer education, a lot of different ways, right? And senior PM and group PM, this is where things get a little more towards broader responsibilities in terms of, P&L, right? Now, not all companies give P&L responsibility to senior PMs, but group PMs often have a P&L responsibility, but they are expected to take a lot more business-centric approach, right? Market size, market opportunity, customer segments, how do we reach them? What is the path that we are going to take, route we are going to take to reach that market, and not in isolation, but with other people, in the organization. Then you start looking at what we call as product lines, right? So slowly now you're getting to product strategy part of it, which is strategic responsibilities. You now have a product. How do you grow that product, right? One way, of course, is do more on the same product, increase the value of that product, penetrate that market more, or you create different lines, what we call as line extensions and width extensions in the product, so that you can expand into different markets. You can also diversify, or you can address different needs of the very customer segments that may have. And then, of course, you have next growth path is fully strategic, which is portfolio owners, right? So now these are the people who make strategic decisions on where should we invest and where should we not invest, right? So if you have 5 products in your organization, often 5 don't get the same level of investment, same level of institutional support, same level of sales support, all of that, right? So these decisions usually are made by the strategic people with strategic responsibilities. And then, of course, you get into next level, which is business heads. These are heads of products or CPOs in several companies, and further, right? Now, what is also interesting, and I've seen this over many years, is many PMs actually become, co-founders or founders and start their own companies and start their own products, right? Because of a fundamental reason that this particular role provides a 360-degree view of the entire business, right? If you've reached senior PM or group PM, you have pretty much a lot of visibility into how products are conceptualized and how you come up with the definition of it, how you build it, how you take it to market, how do you, become successful in the market. There are lots of skills that are required, lots of activities that are there, but in general, you get a 360-degree view of things. Now, there are certain things which in big companies are still not opened up for group and director. Example I can think of is M&A, right? Acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions, but that will change for sure. Okay, so now next important question for all of you to ask this to yourself, right? Because often a product management role, people in product management deal with chaos. Right? A lot of chaos, a lot of things happening, and you're expected to know all these things, whether what's going on in design, what's going on in customer support for your product, what's going on in development, what's going on in marketing, what's going on everywhere. And a lot of it will feel like it is chaotic. At least I felt that for first 3-4 years in my career. And if you're the person who are not very comfortable with chaos or even uncertainty, right? Now, uncertainty and ambiguity are by definition part of this role, because you're expected to make decisions in the face of uncertainty. You will never have 100% data. Now, this is a struggle for a lot of people, especially when you come from engineering, right? Where a lot of it is data, a lot of it is troubleshooting, a lot of it is conditions and case-based and flow charts and paths and everything. Your brain is kind of tuned that, I don't want to make a decision without knowing everything. Well, in this role, it's the opposite. You have to make decisions knowing that you will never know everything, right? And that puts a kind of a stress, both physical and mental stress. Physical because you're constantly meeting with people, talking to them, and I'm sure it's worse now with many companies still working from home. That adds to that fatigue. But even otherwise, mental stress, right? Am I making the right decision? What happens if this doesn't work out? What happens if this goes wrong, right? So that adds to the stress. And overall, it can get very confusing, right? Added to that, in a lot of companies, until you are either a group PM or a director of PM, you are an individual contributor. You don't get people to report to you. And that is by design, by the way, right? It's not by accident, it's by design, because this particular role is built on what we call as influence without authority, right? Because you are expected to work with different stakeholders from different functional teams. Having your own team will take away that focus and attention from influencing the others. And of course, when you get to the portfolio level, usually is when there are teams that are reporting to you. So if you're a kind of a person who think that this is an awesome role that people will report to me, let me break the news for you. Don't pick it for that reason. Not a good reason at all, because it won't usually happen, right? And there are lots of cliches when you ask who's a product manager, what do they do, right? They say they're CEO of a product, they are responsible or owner of this particular thing. Now, those are all cliches to me. Honestly, in reality, I would characterize this as a product manager is a janitor of the product, right? Who cleans up things after, who makes sure things are clean before you come in. And it's also true that if the product succeeds, the success goes to everyone. But if the product fails, often the blame is on the product manager, right? So the reason why I'm giving you all of these things is, while that role looks very attractive, very exciting, very interesting, and great money, you have to introspect and think about, is this right for me, right? And maybe you should ask some people, talk to many people to see, what do they face? How do they take it? How do they manage it? Or do they manage it or not? And make sure that that's the right thing for you. Now, a simple tip for you to make that happen is, again, comes from the product world, as we call as MVP, right? Minimum viable product. So think of your career, think of these as experiments that you want to do. So which means create a small experiment for yourself, and then conduct that experiment and see whether this is right for you or not, right? So I'll talk about some experiments later in the discussion. And of course, all of this requires tremendous amount of grit, right? Because if you start thinking, whatever I'm doing is not working out, that team is not supporting to me, my manager is always questioning me, design team is not providing the designs on time, QA is not doing a QA well, all of this is reality, my friend. And you are the person who's supposed to bring all of the people together and create a common place and common goal and drive towards that. You're not an owner of anything, right? I think it's important to emphasize that. While the title says product owner, you actually are an owner of an orchestration process, right? A productizing process, not an owner of a product, not an owner of a team or any of that stuff. So I just want to put that out in the hopefully some real contrarian point of view, if you will. But not just that, right? There are a whole bunch of skills now that you are looking at that are needed for you to be effective in this role, right? Now I can go on, and there's a whole 25 skills and competencies that are mapped out, in a nice flywheel on the product leadership website if you want to get a full comprehensive understanding of it. But a lot of skills that you may have never thought would be useful, right, will come into play. So let's see, how do we go about doing that? Now, if you look at all of these things, today, all of you know, or many of you know, there is tons of content, tons of information from variety of people on product management and product management roles. But what is missing, or rather it's evolving now, is what is that method? Is it possible to put this in a structured way? Is it possible to give a method to this madness? And that's very critical. That's exactly where I lacked when I transitioned into product management. And the time that it took me to become effective today can be reduced in 6 months. It took me more than 2 years to figure these things by trial and error, by talking to people. But today you have mechanisms in terms of structured programs, mentoring and coaching, lots of people asking you to work on things on your free time. All of those things are available. So method to that madness is very important. And that's where you see a lot of people coming with structured programs for this, right? Another way to think about yourself, apply this to yourself, whether this is right or not. Now, this is a nice mental model, if you will, put together by Jason Shen, one of my friends in the product community. He actually came up with this 4 archetypes, right? Archetypes in product world is called personas: an analyst, an organizer, an explorer, and an advocate, right? So we'll focus more on the left side of things because explorer and advocate are a lot more strategic. So we'll focus more on, are you this type of a person, right? Do you love defining the details? Do you love getting into, figuring out why is this problem happening? What can be done about it, right? Getting into details, getting into the weeds of it, if you will. And you're a person who's looking at patterns in the issues that are coming up from your customers or the product or any of those things. You are a person who pays attention to details, right? So that archetype, that persona is an analyst persona in the product context, right? And then you have an organizer who takes a little more of a person, approach, a people-driven approach. If you look at the axis, by the way, on the y-axis, you have heart and brain, right? Brain stands for logical, rational, analytical thinking. Heart stands for more empathy, people, collaborative, friendly, and all of that stuff. On the x-axis, you have tree on the other side, which is focusing on the details, one particular tree versus a forest, right? So which takes a macro and big view of it. And then you have the organizer who is good with working with people, making sure that the project is on time, on track, and we are doing what we are doing. And if something goes wrong, very good with people, figuring out what is the impediments, how can we solve this, bringing all of that. And this is a person we basically look at orchestrating the product planning process. This is where you see product owners and product managers, right? Analysts is where a lot more of TPMs or APMs that fall in case, right? So I'll spend less time on the advocate and explorer persona, and you can map the roles or the titles accordingly. Again, one simple visual way as an analogy for you to take away who the product manager is. This person is the orchestrator of the productizing process, right? If you look at this picture, and I'm sure many of you have seen a Western orchestra, on TV or anywhere, you have a bunch of musicians playing, right? Different musicians, somebody playing violin, cello, piano, all of that. And this person is holding a stick and waving up and down, right? Now, an analogy to that with product manager is, this is a person who actually knows how to play violin, who actually knows how to play cello, who knows how to play the piano, but is not an expert in any of those things, right? Has a hands-on or a working knowledge of these things, but not an expert, working with these experts to create a harmonious orchestra, right? Or in this case, a good product. So think of a product manager as a master orchestrator of the productizing process. Okay, so anatomy of a product manager, right? Now, this is from a hiring manager's perspective. As I mentioned, lots of experiences, personal experiences, and I talked to several hiring managers. In fact, lots of hiring managers come to IPL to hire from the talent pool. And when we have conversations with them, it can be summarized into these three categories, right? So what they are looking for is fundamentally three things. One is domain expertise, right? Now, if you have spent years in one particular industry, e-commerce or telecom or healthcare or automotive or any of those things, now treat that as an advantage, leverage that experience and expertise. If you don't have that, and that doesn't really matter. If you don't have it, then you are ready to absorb and learn anything. But one thing is important, domain knowledge cannot be taught, right? Taught by others. You will have to immerse yourself. You will have to spend time in understanding the industry, trends, current players, how is it evolving, speak to a lot of subject matter experts in that industry and absorb that in. This is what exactly consultants do, by the way, right? One of you, I think Sai, you said you're a consultant. Lots of consultants do this. You can jump from one domain to another domain very quickly and try and absorb as much as you can so that you can start becoming effective very quickly, right? And then the second one is functional skills, right? Now, these functional skills are something like, if you're in engineering, you have, code reviews, testing and all of those things. If you're in marketing, there are specific functional skills. If you're coming from consultant, there are functional skills. Similarly, for a product manager, there are specific functional skills, right? And I'll show a nice visual later on, putting them into different contexts. But expectation is you have a working understanding of some of these functional skills, right? So keep that in mind. And the third one is leadership skills. Now, lots and lots of leadership skills. It's a word that is misused and abused in the industry, but in the context of products, there are a few that are very, very important. Number one, your ability to tell a really good, compelling story. You're a storyteller because you have to influence others and convince them to come around to your point of view, or be able to influence them with different stakeholders. The second one is negotiations, right? Constantly you're negotiating with somebody or the other from design, marketing, sales, partnerships, or whatever it is. So that skill becomes important. And the third one is conflict management, right? So these are all crucial ones. While there are many, these are the ones that I attribute very high importance to. So now a PM or an aspiring PM is expected to have a balance of these skills, right? Now, you may have spent a lot of time in domain expertise, so which is your level of understanding there is very high, but the other two are also important. You don't have to be an expert in that, remember, but you have to be have a working knowledge of these things to influence or convince your hiring manager to say, not only do I have learned these things, but I know how to apply, right? And that's a key part of it. So I want to step in now to a little more prescriptive steps, right? And these often come from my own personal journey and lots of people that I know and coach and help them make those transitions. And lots of people have made those transitions. So this is kind of treat this as a synthesis of some of those things, right? If you were to take away one thing from this discussion or session, please take this one: build credibility, right? This is super important, and this is what will make you visible and recognizable in the eyes of potential hiring managers. Now, build credibility is a big word, right? If you break it down in this context, I want to highlight 4 things: influence building, skill building, experience building, and personal brand, right? Remember, the topic that we are having is you have no prior product management experience. So in that context, are there any ways to build that experience? How can I build experience if somebody is not even giving me that opportunity to be a product manager, right? So there are literally half a dozen ways to do that. But let's start with how do we build influence, right? Now, as I said, this is one of the most important reasons, even if you are in, skills, even if you are in the role. But before you even get to the role, you want to be able to talk to several people who potentially can give you that opportunity, right? This is what happened in my career. As I said, I spent, every day I used to set up at least 2 calls, 2 meetings with people to learn from them what their job is, how they are doing it, what are their challenges, but more importantly, how are they influencing people, so that you learn, you observe that, and you apply that and go to your management and say, give me an opportunity, give me a chance, right? Now, one of the things that I strongly encourage many of you to do, and this is a tip from the trenches, if you will, is become the voice of the customer, right? Again, many of you may be asking question, but how? I don't have that responsibility. I am not interacting with the customers. How do I become the voice of customers? Well, probably not directly, but I'm sure you have indirect touch points with your customers. Think about your customer support, right? They are the ones who are directly talking to customers on a regular basis. Now, you can go and make friends with the customer support and sit with them and understand in a call, in a meeting, what kind of challenges your customers are facing. Bring back that as insights, right? Not just as issues, not just as product problems, but are you seeing certain patterns in there? And be the voice of the customer to say, what would happen if we give this to the customer? How would they use this, right? If I were the customer using this, would this work for me? Right? So be the voice of the customer is one. The other one, and this is often comes from practical experience, not from many other books or blogs or other webinars, is you should start making friends with the people who are in the roles that are closest to the customers, right? In many companies, product managers are still not the closest to the customers on a regular basis, right? So you have your account teams, you have your sales teams, your customer support teams, you have your partners that are doing it. So please go and establish those relationships. It's not difficult. Many of us get intimidated by the notion that if I reach out to this person, wouldn't it be all awkward or weird? So what? What's the worst that will happen? They'll basically say no, or they won't even respond. So don't take it to heart. Develop a little thick skin, but continuously to do that. And this is really what, as I was explaining, in the beginning, got me to take a product that exists into a completely different market and increase the revenue by 5x in 3 years, right? And that became a super awesome product within the business unit because it suddenly grew from X to 5x. Now, it did not grow suddenly. It took 3 years of convincing the sales teams, convincing the teams that are closest to the customers to do that. So my number one suggestion or tip for all of you is go and meet with the sales guy. Grab a coffee, beer, whatever works for you, right? Do that part. The other thing is always many of us start looking at organizations, hierarchies, teams as from a political angle, right? Now, I don't deny it. There is a lot of corporate politics. People with vested interests and agendas are pulling other people down, but take a different mindset of think of these people as your stakeholders, right? Your sales is a stakeholder, engineering is a stakeholder, consulting team is a stakeholder, design team is a stakeholder. So how do you now go and remember, start making friends, and then understand what their challenges are, how they are managing upwards, so that you have a better understanding of the stakeholder management, right? Become organizationally savvy. That is a key word. You really need to understand the company, the organization, the reporting structure, who reports to whom, why is it structured this way. These may look very superficial, but ultimately these could become the reasons for you not getting into that role, what you want to get into, right? Now, the second part of building credibility, obviously skills, right? What got you here will not get you into that role. So there are lots and lots of skills, but I would emphasize on few very important ones that you can start right away, right? And there are very nice ways how to acquire these skills and demonstrate that. But think of this as not just one particular skill. If you're in engineering, whatever is hot in technology, whatever is going to be your future job, whatever your company wants you to work on, you can focus on those technologies. But this role is a cross-functional role, right? You're going to work with multiple stakeholders, and hence building that cross-functional understanding in a hands-on way is going to bring you credibility, right? Remember, that is the key. You may go in with 15 years in telecom or 2 years in Node.js development. You may be an expert in that. But since you're going to work with different stakeholders, they don't understand that, many of them, and they don't care for it, right? What they care for is how you are able to interpret what they are saying in the language that you mutually understand, right? So that is crucial. So we talk about these cross-functional competencies, but given the topic, given today's topic, I want to spend, focus on two aspects of it. There are different contexts from a product management perspective. You have customer context, business context, market context, innovation context, process context, and leadership. And you have all these things on your screen, but I will pick two of them, especially for people who don't have prior work experience, right? Sorry, prior product management experience. Customer context, right? And this is an area, is a first area I think you should start focusing on reskilling or upskilling yourself, right? So this includes areas like customer discovery, problem validation, and quantifying the opportunity, and coming back to the team and saying, we have a process, we have a mechanism to build products. Now, what is the best way and most effective way to do it? Many organizations today already have some process or the other, right? A lot of them are following agile process. Now, but you may have been exposed to that from an agile development perspective, agile project management perspective. But now you're going to learn to understand agile product management, which is, how do I prioritize? What are the factors that influence prioritization? How do I define roadmaps? How do I communicate those roadmaps? And how do I ensure that what we define as a priority are the ones that we are sequencing in our release cadence, or if it is a technology product, you have frequent releases that happen, right? And certainly in the leadership part, try and get better at written and oral communication, right? This is absolutely critical for you to influence, to bring that credibility, right? So while there are many, many competencies here, I just wanted to put a spotlight on those two, given the audience that we have today, given the topic that we have. But I'm happy to discuss other things for if you have in a later context. Yeah. Okay. Now, we talked about certain skills, and there is a way to build these skills, right? So you can build it sitting at home today. You can do it yourself. Today, we live in a world of pretty much everything is free, right? You can learn about product management using YouTube videos. You can do it with Coursera. You can do it with Udemy. You can read blogs. You can follow people on Twitter. All of that stuff is nice. But I call that as knowledge, right? Knowledge is good, but not enough for you to get a break into product management if you don't have that prior experience. So what is really important is your ability to build certain what we call as demonstrable assets and showcase them for your prospective hiring managers. Now, these managers could be inside your company that you want the opportunity to work in the same company, or outside. Resume will not cut it, right? Let me break this for you. Everybody has an awesome resume today, right? I am looking at resumes regularly because I'm hiring for a variety of roles, and everybody's resume looks awesome. But when you want to look at what they have done Can you show me? Is there evidence? Very, very few people are able to do that, and that is a differentiator. So flip that strategy of following, I'm going to do some course, get a 3-letter acronym, 4-letter acronym to my name, put it in my resume, and then hope and pray that somebody will look at it and hire, right? That's not a predictable way of getting it. Sure, you may get it, luck, and I'm sure your faith in some things will help you get there. But in a predictable way is where you start building an assets, set of product portfolio, as we call, so that you're able to showcase it to different audience. Now, in this context, I want to bring one myth, right? And this is an important one because I also work with lots of people who are doing certifications, who are doing MBAs and executive MBAs and all of that. So is a certificate or an MBA required to be a product manager? The answer is no, right? You can ask any hiring manager. They will tell you it may give you an edge when there is usually a tie, right, between 2-3 candidates. But often, certificate or a degree is proof of knowledge, right? It's proof that you have gained certain knowledge in certain areas. But what you want to focus on and what hiring managers are looking for is proof of skill. So no certificate can say that you have the skill. Only the assets that you've built, the portfolios that you've built, and the methods that you have taken to showcase them are the ones that will grab immediate attention and say. So I'm not saying don't do any certifications or MBAs or whatever that you have. Do if you have time to do it. But there is another advantage for these things, which is they will provide that in a structured context, right? So, it's a puzzle. Product management is a very large puzzle. Often experienced product managers and product leaders suffer from this thing. Where is this piece of the puzzle? Where does it fit? Some of these programs will help you put that pieces of the puzzle together, right? So treat it that way, but do not hope that some 3-letter acronym, 4-letter acronym will magically give you that break into product management, right? So at least I'm not a strong advocate of that, although I support people in doing it because it gives them a sense of discipline, it gives them a sense of structure, and also provides other some benefits, right? So that's a key part to this. Now, all of this is good, Sai, but how do we get that experience, right? Because I don't have any experience right now in working products and product management. So is there some tips how we can do it? So absolutely, right? So again, remember, some of these things have come from years of observing, discussing personal journeys and all of that. So it's a synthesis, right? First, you want to focus on how do I get a foot in the door into the world of product management, right? Don't think that I need to get a title of product management. If you start thinking that way, then you can absolutely make the transition, but don't shoot the gun before it's loaded with bullets. So start building some ammunition, which is get the foot in the door into the world of product management. And here are some ways that you can do it, right? Start by building product vocabulary. And this is really, really important, in a very funny way, in the sense that the moment you start using certain phrases and words that are used in product, right? Remember at the beginning of the conversation, I mentioned unmet needs, pain points, market opportunity, right? All of these things have specific meaning in product. And when you start using this within your team, across your teams, or outside in other companies, you are sending a signal to them that you understand a little bit about products, right? So that's a first. Of course, just vocabulary alone will not cut it. But even if you have lots of skills, you know how to do it. If you're not using the vocabulary, then you are sending a wrong signal, right? So learn and use that part. The other popular way that I've seen, and I've done this myself, I know lots of people who have done this, is find out who your product managers are in your company or elsewhere, and shadow them and follow them, right? Don't stalk them. Follow them in the sense that, follow up with them, right? Understand why have they made that decision? What contributed to making that decision? What are the trade-offs that they are making? And more importantly, what kind of stakeholder management are they doing? Where are they spending most of their time? Are they spending with engineering teams? Are they spending with leadership? Are they spending in customers? Right? And this is important for you because you get a glimpse into that world. If you're not doing this, you're coming and joining such webinars and reading stuff, and you are building your own virtual profile of what that would be. So start getting real, shadow them, follow them, talk to them continuously, and learn from them. Many PMs will, they'll tell you that they don't have time, but they're happy to help you out, right? So this is one another quality of product managers that came out in the survey as well. A lot of them want to share their learnings and mistakes so that other people don't make, right? So that's another thing that you could do. The third aspect is what I say, probably the most important one, is show up, raise your hand for volunteering something to do it. If you are in a company which has product management function and you want to get into that, my strong suggestion is take that step in the company itself and volunteer and go and say, you know what, you are making this decision. Can I work on something that will help you make that decision faster, right? Whether it could be user research, whether it could be design audits, it could be market research and analysis, it could be competitive analysis. Now, of course, remember, for you to do that, you should have had those skills, right? So you build those skills in a way that you can apply. Now you bring those things as part of your showing up hands and saying, I'll do this for free. I'll do this in my own time. I'll figure that time out. I'll carve out some time and do it, right? Or alternatively, lots of participants in IPL programs actually get into internships, right? Free internships. Companies will say, lots of startups in India, right? In Bangalore, in Delhi, in Hyderabad. And the thing about startups is they have way too many things to do. They have less people to do it. So they are more than happy to work with you and say, here is the challenge that we want you to work on. Here are the set of deliverables or the outcomes that we are looking at. So why don't you go ahead and do that? Now, that's a fantastic opportunity for you to do two things. One is applying the knowledge that you've gained. Second thing is build this as a portfolio and demonstrate it to others. Now, of course, removing all the sensitive stuff and everything, but internships, please volunteer. Don't think, oh, that's too much of effort, right? Career transitions require tremendous effort, and especially into a role that is chaotic, that is challenging, that is exciting and strategic. There is going to be a lot of effort that you'll need to put in. Now, along the way, you will run into a lot of challenges. What am I doing this right? Or how should I go about these things? Find a mentor, find a coach. Now, in India, that's not easy, right? I've gone through that pain point myself. Fortunately, within the company, I had couple of excellent mentors who guided me, but I'm sure you can find either within your company or outside in the community, right? Lots of people today are volunteering some of the time. The other day, 3 days back, I saw one of the alumni from IPL who finished a program, essentially said, look, I want to give back. I want to spend some time helping other people to make sense of this product world, right? So find somebody like that, and you will benefit immensely from that part of it. And final thing is personal brand building, right? It's not complicated. It's not as intimidating as you think. But what is really important here is how are you going to come across to those hiring managers? How are you going to differentiate yourself from the hundreds of people who are applying to the same job that you are interested in, and they are competing on resume? And will you also compete on the resume, or will you compete in a different way, right? So signal to the world. In a sense, you can write a 200-word article about something and post it on LinkedIn. You can do a 2-minute YouTube video and share that with people on particular concept, particular topic that you can pick. Anything that is going on right now, right? Why is particular cryptocurrency product fail, right? You have come up with your own market analysis of it. You can come up with your own frameworks, applying those frameworks to this. It may be right or wrong, but at least you are demonstrating to people that you just not listing it in your resume, but you're actually showcasing it, right? So, here is an interesting example. And by the way, in one of the programs in IPL, every student has to do this as an assignment. If I were a product manager of blah, right? Pick your product, pick your favorite company, and then spend time in researching that product from multiple angles, not just the product, right? The customer segment, the opportunity, the user experience, the product itself, the pricing, or any of those things, and come up with, here are the 3 things or the 5 things or the 9 things that you would do if you were the product manager, right? And obviously, you can publish that, you can tag people in that company. There are no restrictions today, right? And this is very effective, because you are signaling to the world that you can analyze, you can bring some ideas, and you can take multiple steps to say, how do we now execute on that idea, right? At least at a high level. So these are some of the specific options or prescriptive ways that I suggest that you adopt. Now, all of this is fine, but please don't do in a let's hope and pray, and I also call this as a spray and pray strategy, right? Don't do that. Take a very deliberate method to developing this transition strategy, right? So which means you really need to first start with analyzing your strengths, right? What are you lacking today? What are you good at? And what are your anchors in your careers, right? Which are holding you back, right? Most of us think that I can be an entrepreneur. I love to be an entrepreneur. That's exciting, but inherently you may be averse to risk. So if that is the case, is that the right career path, right? So there are lots of assessments that you can take, which will help you do that. And then pick the career strategy or the direction that you want to go. And more importantly, identify 10, 15, 20, companies that you want to focus your energies on. If it is your own company that you're working, I would suggest that's the best thing, right? Start from there. And then you start, building the network, connecting with people, offering help, volunteering, right? Saying that, how can I help you? If there is a work that you want me to do on this product, on the market, I'm willing to do that, right? So lots of people will be happy to help you with that. Then make yourself visible. As you build your personal brand, there are lots of forums where you can actually compete with people, not just on your resume, but based on these assets that you have built, right? And of course, there are specific interview strategies that you need to adopt, right? Mock interviews will help you, behavioral type of questions, analytical type of questions, product thinking type of questions. These are all important. But I think many people do the mistake of jumping into that directly before building that credibility, before building, having that enough ammunition when you go to the battle, right? So my recommendation is do those things before you get there. Now, the final thing I'll pause here is whether you are an experienced professional with 10 plus years, 15 plus years, or somebody who is starting off your career or just 2-3 years, a very important mindset to take is don't look at product management as a title. There are titles, there are lots of titles, but look at it as a process, right? A productizing process. And the advantage of that is, even if you don't have the title, if you build that necessary credibility and the competencies and ability to influence people, you can play a significant role in that whole process, right? So that's where I want to stop.